There is no chapter in Proverbs about managing your inbox, no psalm written after a brutal performance review, no letter from Paul addressed to the exhausted employee sleeping too little and quietly starting to come apart. And yet the Bible is full of people collapsing under exactly that kind of weight. Leaders who cannot delegate, prophets who burn out at the peak of their calling, apostles who describe being pressed beyond measure. The language is ancient, the experience underneath it is not. And what makes the Bible surprisingly helpful here is that it does not treat overwhelm as one simple problem with one simple answer. It keeps asking harder questions than that. What kind of weight are you carrying? Why are you carrying it? And was it ever yours to carry alone in the first place? The most direct encounter with professional overwhelm in the Hebrew Scriptures happens in Exodus 18. And the setting matters. Israel has just crossed the Red Sea. Manna is falling in the wilderness. The cloud and the pillar of fire are present. God is visibly at work. And Moses is sitting from morning to evening, judging the disputes of the entire nation of Israel. Alone. Every case, every conflict, every question that cannot be resolved between neighbors, every legal and moral and religious dispute in a community of hundreds of thousands, all of it comes to Moses. And Moses handles all of it, because Moses is Moses. His father-in-law Jethro comes to visit and watches this for one day and says something that is one of the most precise observations in the Torah. Exodus 18:17-18. What you are doing is not good. You and the people with you will certainly wear out, for the thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. The Hebrew word for wear out is nabal. It means to wither, to fade, to fall the way leaves fall at the end of their season, not suddenly, but progressively, until there is nothing left. It is not the word for being tired after a long day. It is the word for slow depletion that ends in collapse. And Jethro says, if you keep this up, you will wear out. But notice the diagnosis underneath the advice. Jethro does not just say Moses is working too hard, he says what Moses is doing is not good. And then he names two consequences. Moses himself will wear out, and the people with him will also wear out. The collapse of the overwhelmed leader is never only personal. It damages the whole system that depends on that leader. Everyone standing in line from morning to evening to see Moses is also being harmed by Moses's refusal or inability to distribute the weight. So Jethro gives him the most concrete piece of advice in the Pentateuch. Appoint capable men over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them handle the ordinary cases. Bring only the truly extraordinary ones to Moses. This is not just management technique. It is the recognition that one person was never meant to carry what Moses was trying to carry. And that reveals something about Moses that Jethro never says directly. Moses had been sitting from morning to evening for a reason, and the reason was not that there was no one else. There were hundreds of thousands of people around him. The reason was that Moses had started living as if the system only worked if he personally handled everything. That is the hidden assumption underneath a lot of serious overwhelm, not laziness, not weakness, a quiet belief that if you step back, something essential will fail, that the thing only holds together because you are holding it together, that your exhaustion is the price of keeping something important from falling apart. It presents itself as responsibility, as dedication, as care, and those things are real. But underneath them, very often, is a belief that everything depends on you more than it actually does. Jethro looks at Moses and, in effect, says, "You are carrying a weight. This whole community was never supposed to place on one person. So if your overwhelm looks like Moses, the answer is not motivation. It is not pushing harder. It is not becoming more efficient at carrying an impossible load. It is restructuring, distributing the work, stopping the pattern that has made you the single point of failure. Now move forward several centuries and look at what happens to Elijah at the highest point of his life. On Mount Carmel, he has just called fire from heaven before hundreds of false prophets and the assembled nation of Israel. The sacrifice is consumed, the drought breaks, rain falls for the first time in 3 years. By any measure, this is the apex of his ministry. And in 1 Kings 19, the very next day, Elijah collapses completely. One threatening message from Jezebel, and he flees into the wilderness, sits under a broom tree, and asks God to let him die. It is enough. That collapse after a peak moment is not the contradiction it appears to be. It is often what follows one. Carmel required everything Elijah had: the confrontation, the public pressure, the emotional intensity, the spiritual strain of years of drought and isolation and prophetic ministry with so little visible change. Carmel did not relieve the weight. It was the climax of it, and when it was over, there was nothing left. What God does in response is one of the most important things the Bible says about exhaustion. He does not lecture Elijah. He does not say, "Remember the victory." He does not tell him to get perspective. He does not hand him a new assignment to snap him out of it. An angel touches him and says, "Arise and eat." He sleeps. The angel comes back. Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. Bread, water, sleep. The God who called fire from heaven for this man is now making him breakfast and telling him to rest before the next thing. That matters, because Elijah's problem is not the same as Moses's. Moses is carrying too much structure on too few shoulders. Elijah is empty. Moses needs distribution. Elijah needs restoration. And if you confuse those two kinds of overwhelm, you reach for the wrong solution. Some people are trying to sleep their way out of a problem that really needs delegation. Others are trying to optimize their way out of a problem that really needs food, sleep, quiet, and recovery. The Bible treats those as different problems because they are different problems. That is the diagnostic question running through these stories. What kind of overwhelm are you actually in? Are you carrying what was never yours to carry alone? Or have you given everything you had and the tank is empty? The first needs restructuring, the second needs restoration, and mixing them up is how people spend years solving the wrong problem. There's a third layer to this, and Jesus speaks to it directly. Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. That passage is often read as a general comfort for tired people, and it is that. But Jesus is also talking about the weight people are carrying in the first place. In the first century, a yoke was not just a wooden farming tool. It was also a way of describing the weight of teaching, expectation, obligation, and interpretation that people lived under. And Jesus says, "Take my yoke." In other words, some of what is crushing you may not be the work itself. It may be the set of beliefs you are carrying inside the work. The belief that failure will define you. The belief that stopping is laziness. The belief that rest has to be earned. The belief that if this slips, you slip with it. The belief that your value rises and falls with your output. That is often what makes work unbearable. Not just the task, the pressure you have fused to the task. Jesus does not say life will become easy. He does not say work will disappear. He says there's a way of carrying life that does not crush the person carrying it. Sometimes the burden breaking you is not just what is on your desk. It is what you have been telling yourself that work means. And underneath all of this is something the Bible builds into creation itself long before Moses or Elijah or anyone else collapses under pressure. Genesis 2:2-3. On the seventh day, God finished his work, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. God does not rest there because he is tired. The Hebrew word is shavat. It means to stop, to cease, to desist. Not because the ability to continue is gone, but because the right thing to do after the work is completed is to stop. That is important. Rest is not an emergency measure added because humans turned out to be fragile. Stopping is built into the structure of reality before work is ever hard, which means the person who cannot stop, who has no functional Sabbath in any form, who fills every available hour because the work will not let them rest, is not just busy. They are living against the grain of how life was designed to work. The rhythm of work and stopping is not optional decoration. It is part of the architecture. And Deuteronomy 5 adds something even sharper. Israel is told to keep Sabbath because they were slaves in Egypt. In Egypt, you do not stop. Pharaoh does not allow stopping. The inability to cease is the mark of the slave, not the free person. That is why Sabbath matters so much in the Bible. It is not merely time off. It is a declaration. I am not owned by what I produce. I am not a slave to the thing I am building. I can stop. The person who cannot stop is always being ruled by something, sometimes by a workplace, sometimes by fear, sometimes by ambition, sometimes by the voice inside that says, if you stop, it all falls apart. That is the internal Pharaoh. And the Bible's answer to that voice is blunt. God made the world in 6 days and stopped. And the world held together on the seventh. So what does the Bible tell you to do when you get overwhelmed at work? First, diagnose the kind of overwhelm you are actually in. If you are Moses, sitting from morning to evening because you have become the person everything runs through, the answer is simple and hard. Stop carrying what should be shared. Distribute the weight. Build structure. Let other people carry what other people can carry. If you are Elijah and you have spent everything and there is nothing left in the tank, the answer is also simple and hard. Sleep, eat, recover. Do not try to solve depletion with more discipline. If you are carrying work inside a set of crushing assumptions about what success means, what failure says about you, and what your worth depends on, then the problem may not just be the work. It may be the burden you have attached to it. And beneath all of it is the stopping question. Do you ever cease? Not accidentally, not when you crash, deliberately, rhythmically, as part of how your life is built. Because if you never stop, the Bible's diagnosis is not admiration, it is slavery. And the good news is that you were not made for that. God made the world in 6 days and stopped. And it held together on the seventh. Yours will too. So step back where you need to step back. Rest where you need to rest. Ask for help where you need help. The work may be real, but so are your limits. And honoring those limits is not weakness, it is wisdom.